Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for not heading straight to the beer tent and actually coming to see us first. My name is Sophie Robinson. I work for Brighton and Hove Food Partnership, and I'm a project manager on the Land Use Plus project. The project's funded by Esme Fairbairn, and it is a nature recovery project which utilises food as its sort of key mechanism. So we are really, really interested in how local level food production can actually help nature to recover. Particularly, as we found in Sussex, this seems to hinge around meat production. We've got a lot of chalk grassland down there, and in order to keep chalk grassland healthy and as biodiverse as possible, we want it to be grazed. So today we're here to discuss models for small-scale local meat and the infrastructure that we need, and I think that infrastructure part is a really key thing. We've got lots of people who are really passionate about either rare breeds or about farming in perhaps a more nature-friendly way. But actually, if we're missing that small-scale local infrastructure, how does that impact their ability to continue to farm in that way? And I think, first of all, I'd like to address what's possibly a bit of the elephant in the room. Very often when we're talking about nature and the environment, we assume that perhaps meat isn't the best thing to be doing to improve climate and environment. But actually, when we're looking at a small scale level, what you can find is you can have really targeted animals being used in a really targeted way to increase biodiversity. I was listening to a fascinating talk this morning that Andy gave about dung beetles and how managing herds in particular ways for dung beetles can actually allow the dung beetles to sequester more carbon and reduce the amount of methane that the dung's giving off. So it's actually not as simple as red meat is bad for the environment, red meat is bad for the climate. It's far more nuanced, and especially when we get down into this very small scale. So I'd love for each of my brilliant panel to just give a quick introduction to who they are, where they farm, and what it is that makes models for small-scale local meat really important to them. We're going to start with you, Rowan.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Rowan. I grew up on a goat farm originally. I've been working as a researcher at the Organic Research Centre, but I've been asked to speak today as a member of Street Goat. So we are an urban goat farming collective based in Bristol. We have about 50 to 60 goats on 12 sites across the city, and we operate in two ways, basically. So the first is maybe a model people in this room are a bit more familiar with, which is sort of classic CSA model for our milk production. So we have these kind of fixed sites where you have a membership of maybe 10 to 20 people. Everyone shares the costs. Everyone shares the benefits, loads of milk in the summer, and then everyone kind of grits their teeth through the winter, basically. And then we have another way of working, which is the byproduct of the milking, which is conservation grazing across multiple sites in the city. And this part of the organisation is run by quite a dedicated sort of core group of membership and a lot of volunteers. We, through that, we provide meat for the city. We've done collaborations with, we produce skins that we sell at markets. We've worked with a drummer who skins some drums using our goats. And we also have other income streams such as corporate bodies love us. I was never aware of this, but people actually pay to come and work on a farm, which I found quite amusing, to move like manure around. And then we also work with a vet school as well. They come and do some training on our farm. And if I had a minute, could I talk about the social side of this project as well? So another kind of element of our work is we work with Bristol City Council to kind of use these waste parts of land, so completely overgrown with brambles and blackthorn, and they tend to be quite sort of unused parts of the city, and the council really like us because they've noticed when we move the goats in, it brings the people in. It's not just like a top down, like a couple of guys with a strimmer. knocking back weeds. It's something that the community can be part of as well, and we're clearing spaces. So I guess it's conservation grazing, not just for the environment, but also improving the human environment in the cities as well. And we're developing a model for social prescribing with our goats as well, which we've had some really great feedback from a charity worker recently about the positive impacts that can have. So we're kind of starting to discover all the things that goats can do in the city at the moment. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Goats are such wonderful animals. It's impossible not to fall in love with them. Brilliant, thank you. So I'd like to pass over to Jo to give a little introduction.
Hello, mine's going to be really boring after that. I'm Jo from Swillington Organic Farm. We've been direct selling for 25 years since we started going organic. I've done more or less every way of direct selling, I think. We've done farmers markets, meat box schemes. We've got a small shop, CSA schemes as well. So whatever the market is, we've been able to do it. And we've gone from one thing to another, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. My son joined me probably 12 years ago, and he set up the meat boxes, which when we first started doing it was really good, because we have mixed meat to put in it. We've got British white cattle and Hereford cattle, Hebridean and Texel sheep, and then we've also got saddleback pigs, none at the moment, but up until last week we had. Then I do poultry as well, so we do poultry for eggs and meat. We've done turkeys, geese, ducks for Christmas. I haven't done Christmas really since bird flu. I've just lost my nerve, because if turkeys get wiped out the week before Christmas, we've lost everything. So we still do chickens. The problem I had with the chickens was nobody would slaughter them. So we put in our own poultry abattoir. I did my slaughter licence, which it's quite hard to find anybody that will help you do a slaughter licence now. So I'm lucky I got that. All the cattle and the sheep go to an organic abattoir at Chesterfield. I'm sure you're going to talk about abattoirs in great detail. The pigs, although they're not organic, they go to the same abattoir just because they're really good. They're good on everything, the welfare, the paperwork, and they'll deliver the meat back. So we've got our own poultry abattoir. I also put in a butchery, so we can just get the carcass back and we can do whatever the customer wants. I was finding when other people were butchering, they were doing what they wanted or what everybody else wanted. And it's not good enough if you're direct selling. You need that link with your customer and to be able to provide something a bit different. So we do a lot of farm walks with the customers so they can see how we produce everything. I also do school visits, and we've done open farm Sundays and everything else really. So we've also got diversifications on the farm. We've got glamping, school trips, weddings, forest school, compost making, caravan storage, Christmas trees, fishing lakes. We're about to do open farm swimming. In short, we'll do a bit of everything, but the main thing I want to do is produce food, but on a small farm, I just don't think it's viable unless you've got other options. So, pass on to you.
That's an incredible amount of options. That's just absolutely amazing. Is there anything you haven't done?
I haven't done fish yet.
Okay, not fish yet. Thank you so much, Jo. Lovely. So, we turn to you, Jen.
Thank you very much. So yes, hello everyone. I'm Jen Hunter. I'm from Fernhill Farm and sister enterprise Fernhill Fibre. So originally from the northwest, now southwest, which obviously is very livestock producing counties. We love the rain, we love the grass, we love livestock, and I've kind of had to follow a very paleo diet because of osteoarthritis in my life. So I trust meat more than anything else in my diet. So naturally, we've always tried to promote that to people that come down our farm drive. So Fernhill is a very ancient farm. We're 5 miles away from Cheddar Gorge. There is arrowheads all over our farm. there's a pond right next to our house, so people have been coming out of Cheddar Gorge, chewing on the mutton, sitting around a campfire, wearing sheepskins, and we joke that we haven't really evolved very much on our land. And it is our secret ingredient, is that sort of exposure to natural human behaviour and systems and a natural diet. So that's pretty much what you can see on the screen. It's what my life looks like. We have a homebred herd of Aberdeen Angus, about 4,000 sheep, lots of Romney in them at the moment, but we also have a specialist wool fibre flock where I make clothing. And we've got pigs that live in the woods. And I was just joking with Andy earlier, is that they are there to work for us. They're not there just to have a nice time skipping around the countryside. So we do see livestock as a land management tool, and they've helped us reclaim different parts of the farm whilst producing very good meat. And I was very lucky sort of 10 years ago to be awarded a Nuffield Farming Scholarship. So I've sort of added value to the wool. We also sell quite a lot of sheepskins and make various different products out of whatever we can from our sheep flocks. And the photo at the bottom there is just sort of what I've sort of had to do over the years. We run an events business from the farm, which has basically had about 20,000 visitors down the drive for the last 20 years. So that's been weddings and predominantly lots of festivals, stag parties, hen weekends, you know. Anyone that is very interested in a meat box, you know, I'm interested in them generally. And most of my model is I kind of wait for people to ask me rather than me creating a model and then trying to sell it. So yeah, I try and find a way of saying yes. And the picture at the bottom is where we have festivals on the farm, and we run cafes where we do full English breakfasts, sort of burgers and things for lunch, and then a proper full-on evening meal. And, you know, it's a winner all the time. So that's just a little bit of what we do up there too. Oh yeah, this one here I kind of wanted to sort of bring to everyone's attention that, yes, we are looking at small-scale pigs and, you know, beef on our farm, but we also have sort of 4,000 to 6,000 sheep, or we have done. And so this is kind of what's come out from having volume and being able to connect, following the standards, being verified as regenerative. And, you know, we're not alone, even though we might consider ourselves small-scale. We need to sort of work with lots of different partners, and these are just some of the people who we've connected with over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years. So, thanks.
Thank you. I've just come out of a talk all about community, and I think that actually it's so valuable. Everybody has different skills, different interests, different abilities to take you to a new audience, so it's so worthwhile harnessing community. Yeah. And Andy?
So I have a company called MC Kelly Limited. We supply hotels and restaurants. We are fiercely independent, and I don't think any of my customers are more than 1% of my turnover, and I like it that way because I like to be able to say bugger off to any of them if I need to. And we hate the idea of supplying the big multiples or anybody like that. I tend to view myself as connecting the two big industries of the southwest of England, which is the great food production, and we deliver that great food to the hotels and restaurants who supply the tourists. So we sort of add terroir to their tourism experience. We process about 6,000 wild deer a year. And in terms of climate change and that sort of thing, I always say, you know, eat a deer. It saves you planting 300 trees and stops it belching. So everybody's a winner there. So to eat more deer is one of my things. I licensed the Fur Farm Mobile Abattoir, which is the first mobile abattoir in the country for a very long time, which is fully licensed, I think, though occasionally I get contradicted. And that's been an interesting experience, and in many ways has unlocked that as an opportunity for more mobile abattoirs, a different way of looking at things. We did this, it was bought by Jane Parker of Fur Farm, and it's just been a bit of a wedge driven into what was a recalcitrant and difficult negotiating position with government. So that's been very good. I'm also a member of the abattoir sector group, which is lobbying on behalf of small slaughterhouses And it's a very slow process, but we are talking to the top of DEFRA, and we occasionally get time in the Secretary of State's office or the Ministry of Ag's office, and we've had a few wins, which we might talk about later on. I also farm, and I do a lot of other things, all quite complicated, but not so much related to this. I just believe deeply in that need for a local food supply chain. As much as anything else, because it's what allows agriculture to thrive. If we just have consolidated exploitative industries, which we're supplying as little people into, with no challenger businesses coming up underneath them, then we are just doomed to be commodity producers forever. I've never produced anything I didn't already have a market for. I hate the idea of producing something and going to the end of a lane and saying, I've got some stuff, does anybody want it? I like to have it sold before it happens, and I like to slightly undersupply my market so that I'm not begging people to buy it. So that's me, thank you.
Thank you so much. So what I really wanted to start with today was a little bit about the nature aspect of this. Very often people do go into small-scale farming because they're looking to improve the environment. So I'd love to speak to Rowan first of all. Can you tell us a little bit about what conservation grazing is and how you use it at Street Goat?
So I should be really clear here. I'm not an ecologist. In fact, I think my mother once called me a botanical ignoramus, basically. So there was a fantastic talk earlier about the value of livestock in ecological systems. So I won't try and explain that part, but I'll explain a little bit what we do in Street Goat and why that has got us a seat at the table with local authorities and also the local wildlife trust, Avon Wildlife Trust. So, I mean, for us, what conservation grazing means for us is to graze at a level that beats back invasive, sort of scrubby species without impeding on the emergence of new habitats following. And that's very applicable to kind of what's going on in Bristol, where you have lots of pockets of land that are totally overgrown with brambles. You get these extensive blackthorn scrubs that no one can use or get through. So what we're doing at the moment, we've got some. It's a little bit down to how we've bred the goats. We've got these pretty stocky Boer Anglo-Nubian crosses. We call them the bulldozers. They come in, they knock the trees around, they beat down the brambles, they create these islands in the middle of the scrub, and then from that you get these fantastic new kind of habitats. You get great flower life, you get insects abundance as well coming through in following years. So I've been there for about 4 years now, so I've seen some really great transformations on different sites in the city. But why it works for us as a model is because it totally fits with what we're trying to do, which is to produce food and to produce regular milk for our members, and to produce milk, a byproduct of that is meat. So the conservation grazing approach enables us to take responsibility for those lives that we're producing as well, and kind of engage with the public in another way around food production, and to sometimes have those difficult conversations about what happens to the male goats, for example. So it's been a really good opportunity for us to have those conversations about producing food as well in an urban space where a lot of communities aren't necessarily exposed to how food is produced. I could talk a little bit about our approaches, or so I mean, one of the key parts about goats is obviously, I mean, I don't want to teach grandmother to suck eggs, but the browse height of goats is very well tailored to conservation grazing, in that they don't like to dip below sort of 20 centimetres when they're grazing grassland. They can survive off of forage, so about 60% of their diet can be forage. And that again works really well. Often we won't need to use hard feed to even, we'll be getting 3 litres a day sometimes, milk-wise per goat, just off of brambles. So it's a really good resource that the city has, and goats are an animal, unlike other livestock, that can kind of capitalise on that. And then also the council work with us to sort of think about the timings at which we do it. So if they want an area cleared, they'll get us in late autumn, so we're kind of really knocking back the brambles at the right time. And if they want whole areas kind of brought back, we even overwinter goats. You can get, sometimes bramble leaves will keep through to sometimes January, tend to fade off around February. We have to bring in a bit of hay, but yeah, generally you can get the bramble seed bank right back using that approach. So I'll shut up about goats.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting to hear like a full model and how goats can be so adaptable and useful in an urban environment. At Brighton and Hove Food Partnership, we won a meat box scheme called Sussex Grazed, which works exclusively with conservation grazing farmers across the Eastern Downs. So we have a group of 5 farmers and now 2 deer stalkers who are managing animals for the environment. And we're in the process of taking on a 6th farmer and 2 more deer stalkers by the end of the year. And I think the thing is, you know, when you have this variety of animals, they're all very specialised to different skill sets. Cows, cattle rip, you know, sheep nibble down, and as you said, goats just go in and clear everything. So a combination is really, really great. And our model actually was based on the CSA model. So Joe, would you be able to tell us a little bit about, you know, what a CSA model is, how it works, and how you use it at your farm?
Yeah, I mean, a CSA model can be varying types of things. We started with veg CSA. I was already selling meat through the shop and markets, so we had sort of a customer base we could contact. So we started with 30 people, and most of them paid up front for the veg that they didn't get for 6 months, but I think we were in different times then. This was quite a long time ago. They've more or less stuck with me, so we're still doing the veg. I was then approached by Headingley Market to see if we would do a CSA with the chicken. And they more or less did all the work, to be honest. I didn't do a lot except produce the chicken. So I worked out what the cost of the chicken was. I put on something for a profit. They sorted out all the money, took the orders, and then paid 6 months in advance. So the chickens were actually paid for before produced them, which was great. So with that model, I took the chickens to the market once a month, and everybody collected them from the market. If they didn't collect them from the market, or somebody didn't collect them, then they could collect them from the farm, but they'd only a few days to do it, otherwise they lost the chicken. And it worked really well. The thing with the farmers markets, if you're doing meat, if it rains or there's a bad day, or even if it's a hot day and people don't turn up, you've then got the meat to do something with. I mean, you can freeze it, but it doesn't sell as well. So the CSA model meant that, you know, I knew I'd got a market for whatever I produced. We did try a pork CSA, but that didn't work as well. I think it's quite hard balancing what everybody gets to make sure they all get a sort of, I don't like to say a good bit, but sort of a joint plus the shoulder, whether it be sausages or whatever. So we did that for a few years, but that didn't really work. We've also tried lamb as a CSA, but again, it's quite a lot of lamb to have all at once. So I'm looking at doing that again, but trying to do some sort of lamb pack as a CSA. I do like the CSA model if you can get enough people involved. Like I say, you know you've got your money, you know how much money you're going to get, and that you've sold your products at the end of the day. So yeah, that's me on the CSA.
Perfect, thank you. And I think something that goes really nicely alongside the sort of CSA model is the idea of diversification and maximising your yield from a single animal. I'm sure you've heard it said a lot of times around Groundswell, but diversification is resilience. So, Jen, how do you use diversification to make the very most of your animals on farm?
Okay, thanks for the question. So I think what's different to what Joe was just talking about is, you know, I'm a bit scared of admin. I run quite a few different enterprises and I spend enough time sat in the office. So the thought of having to deal with one person one by one is quite terrifying. I deal with event managers, organisers, and they might bring anywhere from 10 to 12,500 people down the drive, which is, it suits me to have that sort of level of kind of control over the people because we're a 100% grassland farm. Humans love grass, don't we? We love putting our tents up and having a party in the field on grass. And so that's kind of what our diversification models have sort of originally sort of evolved around, was people on the land and then being able to feed them, to clothe them, and to grow fuel for them. So that's led into obviously beef, lamb and pork that we can produce. I say lamb, but to be honest, really we're sort of hogget or predominantly mutton producers. And from a mutton, we can get 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different wool clips, depending on what time, what age, what breed, how we harvest the wool. So yeah, we sort of maximise the sort of fibre potential from our livestock. And certainly with our luster flock, at the end of that sheep's productive life, you know, we have sheepskins that are very colourful. They've got curls all over them. They fly out of the shop at a very nice retail price. And so we're adding value, diversifying into different market streams to people that want to, take something home from the farm where they're having a nice time on. So that's sort of also led into education. So we teach blade shearing, we teach wool handling, I teach adding value to wool. So that might be a sheep farmer that wants to create their own yarns, clothing, fabrics, things like that. But we also take on a lot of textile students that, quite frankly, I've never even seen a sheep, but they're learning or supposed to be learning about British wool. And so we, they go, there's a set of blades, have a go at sheep shearing. And, I teach them how that they can actually shear a sheep and take it all the way through to their final piece for their dissertation. So education is, maybe it's not what you consider a classic diversification model, but it's something that we have really enjoyed doing. And I think that's key to having many different income streams, is you have to kind of enjoy what you do. And just to use COVID as an example, so all of a sudden March 2020, we didn't have 20,000 people coming anymore. And we were like, okay, that's fine. I've got a backup business. I can just put everything into my online Fernhill Fibre business. I can do meat boxes. I can still do various different income streams. And so, it's you just have to have your hands in sort of many different pots, I think. And I think as livestock farmers, I think that sort of comes quite natural to us. None of us really want to be doing the same thing over and over again each day. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm actually going to come back to Joe now. Your farm has been through many different sort of models, and actually when we were talking before, you mentioned that you actually reduced the size and consolidated it and concentrated on fewer things. Can you tell us a little bit about that decision and how it's changed your model? Maybe both good things and bad?
It's a combination of things, personal health issues, family health issues. We got to a point where I was renting land all over the place to keep up with the demand. So I had other people looking after the stock. I was doing conservation grazing as well. And I was just spending my time going here, there, everywhere, and I wasn't enjoying myself. And I think we were just burning out. I was wearing out. So that wasn't the ideal situation. My son then decided he wanted a career change as well. So we looked at everything and just reduced everything to a manageable level that I could cope with again. I'm looking for share farmers to come in with me so we could possibly build it up again. We found somebody for the veg, but then my idea is to get different people doing different things rather than one person tearing themselves apart. So the next stage is looking for share farmers, but we haven't given up. So at the moment I'm just producing what I'm producing. When I've meat to sell, I send a newsletter around, we open the shop and we sell it, and it's as simple as that. It's much easier.
Brilliant. I mean, it is about, quality of life and actually being able to manage everything as much as anything else.
Quality of life, because at first I was doing everything. I was doing the markets, doing the butchering, doing the stock rearing, and what I really want to do is work with livestock. I don't want to be a butcher, I don't want to be a salesperson, but it's a means to an end, and it means that we can keep the stock if we do all the other things.
Thank you. So I'm going to pivot a little bit and get into small abattoirs. Now, we have one small abattoir remaining in Sussex down on traditional meats, and this services Sussex, Surrey and Hampshire being the only small abattoir remaining in those counties that will offer a kill and return service. We have found that as part of our meat box scheme, this has been the most difficult thing. You're having to book animals in sometimes months in advance in order to get them slaughtered without having to send them to Essex, for example, which seems fairly insane to me. Now, we are very lucky to have Andy with us. And Andy, I'd love it if you could just give me a bit of an overview. What's going on with small abattoirs? What are some of the challenges and changes around small-scale livestock farming more generally that have happened sort of in the last 6 months?
Sure, okay. And I don't think anybody in this tent doubts the need for small abattoirs and the value that it brings, especially in relation to regen farming. You know, we're going to reintroduce livestock into systems. There's huge swathes of England without any abattoirs at all, and it more or less makes it impossible, which hence the reason why we've been lobbying extremely hard to sort this mess out. I mean, we've gone since the 70s from 3,000 to about 220, 240 now. I mean, that's a catastrophic drop-off, and we're losing about 10% every year. So it just needs a lot more doing with it. So the first thing we had was the FSA put up a consultation saying that they were going to remove our you have to be careful how you phrase it, but basically we don't pay the full cost recovery on the inspection of livestock in small abattoirs, and the FSA have just said that they're going to maintain the same level of charging as they were before. And I think if we hadn't gone in hard on that and in an awful lot of lobbying, we would have lost that. That would have closed all of us down overnight, because we cannot pay for what is basically a public health inspection in our systems. It's just too expensive on those economies of scale. So we won that one. I think the most exciting one from the point of view of reduction of costs is the World Organization of Animal Health. I think WOA have just reassessed us for BSE status, and we have now been judged as negligible risk. And that is huge, absolutely huge. But don't get too excited yet, because it's probably going to take about 6 to 12 months for our government to be able to, and it's not their fault, to be honest, to be able to move it into primary UK legislation rather than just a judgment from the World Organization, the WOA, basically. But that will mean that we can, over 30-month beef won't need its spine removing, which means we won't have sort of floppy carcasses, and we can have T-bone steaks from rare breed beef again. It means we'll be able to recover probably 12 to 16 million pounds worth of mesenteric fat. It'll reduce the whole. It'll reduce a lot of the labour. It costs about £45. Most abattoirs charge you about £45 to remove a bit of spine prior to delivering it back if it's OTM. So it's impact on rare breeds is great. Its impact on very good quality marbled meat sometimes is also great. They're also potentially reassessing the 5% rule. I never can quite remember what the 5% rule is, but basically at the bottom, at the smaller end of the scale, it allows a slightly reduced inspection regime, and therefore for small abattoirs it could potentially reduce the costs. Actually, the freeing up of the borders from the point of view of the movement of meat across borders, especially for my venison, is going to be really helpful at the moment. It's impossible for a small producer to export a pallet because of the cost of the European health certificates and the pernicious inspection from the devious French when it gets to the other side of the channel. And that removal is also a beneficial thing. So there's quite a lot of positive things going on. And of course, loaded on top of that is the reduced regulatory burden around of the ability to have a mobile abattoir and the freedom that produces. So that's quite a lot of stuff. And most of it's pretty positive. The difficulty is, of course, that once you destroy something, it's very difficult to get it back again, because you haven't just destroyed the building, you've destroyed the whole social infrastructure around it. You know, your slaughtermen are dispersed to the wind and your competitors grab them. The whole supply chain falls to pieces, and it's much, much more difficult to put that back. And at the moment, I'm working on various islands, trying to build abattoirs for islands, and that's interesting in as much as the main drive behind it is nature recovery. It's about maintaining a graced landscape, keeping insects on the landscape for the birds on the islands. The Scillies is the one I'm sort of most ahead on at the moment. The Scillies have got very few cattle left because it became economically more sensible to keep horses. The horses are all being routinely wormed. I don't think there's much egg testing going on, which means that they're basically wiping out all their insects through people with small patches of land who don't quite understand the risk of that, of what they're doing. So having an abattoir there, one, saves the movement of animals across onto boats and across back to the mainland. It encourages the more livestock to be kept, and that livestock will improve that landscape. So we're looking at doing one for the Orkneys, one for the Scillies. There's a conversation around Jersey possibly as well, and there's also other opportunities. John Fisher, just put your hand up in the back there. John Fisher is also doing small abattoirs, meat premises and things like that. The nice thing with modular and movable abattoirs isn't necessarily that you're going to go from farm to farm. It's much more of a hub and spoke system. The Orkney one will go from farm to farm. Having said that, it's going to be tiny and nimble, and the Scottish licensing people accepting that it's an appropriate thing for that landscape. And appropriate is a really valuable word. If you can get the enforcers talking in appropriate terms, then you're definitely heading in the right direction. And we have created this political pressure to get this done. But what it does really is and this is my experience, my personal experience, having run the mobile abattoir from Fir Farm, is it gives you the chance to flirt with slaughter, which is a slightly bizarre way to put it, but you can give it a go and see what happens and see if it suits you and see if you can actually put that infrastructure in place, and you can build a belief within your supply chain that you can do this, and at the same time you can prove to your planners that that is something that if you want to actually put down a solid thing later on, you can. And at the same time, if you think it's actually not for you, you can give up and flog it to somebody else, because there's nothing sadder than an empty slaughter building. It just is quite difficult to change it into something else, and it's so, you know, movable stuff, it's really, really good. And the other thing is, it can be an opportunity for reducing your, it's possible to build these things at a lower cost. And you have to remember that one of the biggest costs of a capital intense business is the cost of the depreciation. So you spend a lot of money with a low throughput. The depreciation is obviously going to be higher than somebody spends a bit more money for a much higher throughput. So we have to be able to come up with models where that depreciation cost doesn't destroy your business before you ever start. Part of that opportunity is nature recovery, because the people and the landscape recovery are going, hang on a minute, we can't do this. You know, people get it. We've made enough noise about this for them to get it and go, perhaps we do need to be subsidising this a bit and helping it along the way in whatever creative way they possibly can. Oh, and I also forgot, we did manage to secure a $3 million 50% grant for small-scale abattoirs with the last government, which did run on. I applied 3 times, and I've done all sorts of fantastic improvements and made myself much more cost effective, to the point where I'm now building a lamb lairage to go on the end of my venison line, so I will now be able to buy lambs from my neighbours and potentially drive all my livestock up the road and into it without anything going on wheels. So that just demonstrates what a glorious thing it is to have something right on your doorstep, and actually the story you can tell about the fact that livestock hasn't moved. I mean, my cattle move about 70 yards from field to slaughter, and you know, people can't say that, and people buy into that. So there we go. That was quite a long one. Thank you.
That's all right. You answered both your questions in one go. Well done. So One of the things that we've done at Brighton and Hove Food Partnership to address this issue with small abattoirs is we actually wrote a report month before last, which was designed at helping local authorities understand that whilst it might, the building may exist in one of their areas of responsibility, it does actually affect all of the surrounding local authorities as well. And this was actually taken to Parliament and was used in part of a debate by MPs about the value of small abattoirs. One of the things that I think made it so effective was the testimonies from farmers themselves about the importance. And Rowan, would you tell us a little bit about why small abattoirs matter to you and Street Goat?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're pretty much essential for us to do what we do and to have the impact that, well, we think we're having across the city. We're very fortunate. We're in a position where we have 2 local abattoirs that are prepared to take small order sizes. They don't need a huge run-in, maybe a month and a half, which again is really important to us because we need that flexibility. We don't own land, so essentially we could lose all our land in a couple of weeks. So we need to be able to have that infrastructure to actually survive as an organisation. And then I guess another part of the picture for this is having a butcher as well who's prepared to take our small order sizes. So I think we managed to talk our butcher down to 4, and that was a bit of a compromise. But for them, they're running a business too, and it really needs to be worth it. So that gets our cost per kilo on the meat. It is quite high, even though we're covering costs. It's still around sort of £14 a kilo. Which it's brilliant meat, but you'd imagine direct from the farm it could be cheaper than that. So yeah, essential that we have that butcher, and also another whole industry that's been lost in this country is having tanneries. We have to take ours down to Devonia in Devon. That's the only one near us. So yeah, there's so much that's been kind of stripped back in terms of rural services here. And yeah, we're very fortunate to be near some, but on our farm in Devon, I've been in the position where we've not been near abattoirs, and it's an hour and a half in a trailer, and I've not got a heart of stone. That's a horrible thing to put your animals through, basically. So yeah, an essential part of what we do, basically.
Perfect, thanks so much. I've got one more question for the panel, and then I will let you ask them some questions because I know you're absolutely raring. So Jen, you with your meat, you serve a number of different audiences. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the differences in presentation that your different audiences might expect?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So a week ago, I was taking 1,200 sausages to Glastonbury Festival. If you are cooking in a field and you've got 1,200 sausages to cook in one go, you don't really want too much plastic crap blowing around a field. So you have to think about what the person is doing and how they're going to operate, and kind of listen again to what they want, rather than me creating a package and then saying, yeah, I want you to buy into this, it does this, this and this. So I kind of almost reverse it and try and really listen and find a price that suits that person and what they're doing, whether they are a chef, a catering company, or the other extreme is, I do have little packs of 4 burgers in my sweet little shop that's on the farm, which suits our weekend visitors if they want to take a little bit home with them. They can deal with excessive plastic because that's what the butcher does, and it's got the label on it, and it's got all those, bits of information that by law we have to provide. But a catering company doesn't need that. They just need to know that we have the license to do it, and I need to know that they have the license to do it, and we do that sort of, before the sale even commences as such. So I think it's just understanding what your audience is and how they are going to consume that meat, whether it's for themselves in their little house or whether they're going to be cooking 1,200 sausages in a field. And we would we're very lucky. We have Langford Abattoir just down the road from us, which is 5 miles away. So just to add on to that part there, because we get a lot of sheepskins and we've got our own Aberdeen Angus cowhides that I can do leather and suede and lots of sheepskins. It's vital that we can be able to nip back there a few hours later and pick them up and then, you know, salt them back at the farm and then deliver them to wherever they need to go to next. And so it's we also link with various different butchers, and if it's something that is going to be going through my little shop and it needs all that label and it needs to be presented perfectly and look like it is a value added product, I use a butcher that doesn't have a butcher's shop, because that means he only does private kill, which means he is absolutely committed to making my meat look really, really attractive on a shelf. 1,200 sausages were brought out of the abattoir in bags and, you know, bundled off to the festival because nobody cares about the packaging. So I think that's what I would like to get across is, you know your audience and understand, you know, what they are actually going to be doing with your product. And that is the same for meat and for the wool side of our business too. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So I will take some more questions from the audience. I'm going to start on this side of the room because our lovely lady with the microphone is over here. Anyone from this side of the room? Don't be shy. Got one here. The lady in the third row.
Thank you very much. I can see the different kind of audiences that small producers can kind of direct the produce to, like catering, direct to customers. But what about public sectors like schools, universities, hospitals?
I do Exeter University and a few campuses in Plymouth and Cornwall. It is an opportunity. The Labour government say they're going to make it more of an opportunity. We are talking to, interesting, the venison thing is kicking off a bit, so Imperial College is potentially talking to us about it. So public procurement is an enormous opportunity. I've talked to them about it for 35 years and I haven't got much further. I've been doing the same people for a long time. We do schools a bit. They do. The problem is there's always somebody between the policymaker and them who is that procurement manager, who it's an awful lot easier to do. And at one point we lost Exeter University because the procurement manager just wanted to buy from one person with one invoice, so they bought it all from Booker. But the chefs went mental because the food was disgusting. So they cut that bit off. And then they came back to us. So.
Would anybody else like to come in on procurement? What I will say is this is something that food partnerships across the UK are so interested in. It's a bit of a silver bullet. If we can get local food into institutions, it will improve the nutrition of people in, you know, hospitals, schools, prisons, all of these things, and they'll have much better outcomes, whether that be in health or in life generally. As Andy very rightly says, the problem comes with the middleman and the fact that they are looking to make as much money as possible off of it, basically. There's a little bit of hope.
I used to do prisons as well, and I will just tell you a story. It was one time our van got locked in because a prisoner escaped in the veg van, and when the veg van stopped, the prisoner jumped out, but he jumped out in the next prison. We just did a transfer.
Thank you, Andy. Anybody else with a question? We'll go over here. We'll come back to you. Yeah, the lady in the white shirt there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so that you can talk more about venison, eat more deer. Thank you, Andy. We've got a small herd of conservation grazing beef in Cambridgeshire, and we already sell that direct to the local villagers through pop-ups and things like that. I would really love to add venison because we have deer roaming across the estate. We do actually have a relationship with a deer stalker. And I'd like to just add it in, but it's proving really quite a lot more difficult than I naively thought it would be. The game dealers aren't really interested. They won't come and pick up one carcass every so often. Or if they do, they say, well, we'll you come and deliver it to us. We'll charge you 50 quid to take the fur off, and then we give you back the carcass. So I've still got to go and get it butchered somewhere. I just wonder, should I just give up? Have you got any tips for how we might be able to do that? The infrastructure's not there. What can we do?
So this is cutting my own nose off, really, because I like to be I'm an approved game handling establishment. I should encourage everybody else to do that. But when you can't, and it's your deer, you are allowed to butcher it, skin it and butcher it direct yourself. And at the moment, in the FEFT, whatever that stands for, but the Farming and Technology Fund, you can buy a mobile deer larder with a 40% fund either at medium or large, so you can get, I think, 20 or 30 deer in it. So you can actually, at the moment, get grant aid on buying a deer just for larder to put it in, and you can actually process it and sell it yourself without too much bother, just under the local authority license. And personally, if I was you, and I was a long way from a game dealer and he was a bit exploitative, because I charge about 20 quid, I would have done that, to be honest. So, but we just need to process more deer. The problem with deer, especially in the east of England, is they're so half the time you're shooting muntjac, and who's going to drive 40 miles with a muntjac? You know, it just doesn't add up. So we do need a more intelligent way of getting it into the market. If you've got an existing market in a butchery, I should do it yourself and take the grant. It's finishing soon, so grab it quick.
Take advantage of the stalker's exemption. So we've been working on deer for about 9 months now with Sussex Grazed. We do all of our sales through the Open Food Network. Nick from the Open Food Network is over here. Do go and have a chat with him. And as part of that, the Open Food Network has been working with the British Deer Society, who we also work with, to develop the Wild Venison Network, which is starting to highlight where people can buy venison direct from the estate or the stalker, where it was raised or shot. I think there's a real sea change and a real movement at the moment for venison. People are so interested in it. And actually, if you're around tomorrow morning, we have a talk on in the study at 9 a.m. where we are talking more about communication, but it will be quite venison focused. So do come along and hear from the British Deer Society, the Open Food Network, one of the stalkers that we work with at Sussex Grazed, and also Knepp Estate. Anyone else want to come in on deer? I realise I hogged that. We did have a gentleman over here at the end with the red sunglasses and the hat.
Jan McCourt, North Hill Farm. I just wonder whether any of you are having any success with online sales direct to individual customers. You haven't mentioned that as a route to market.
We used to do meat box sales. I think we started it when there weren't many meat boxes about. There are some really big firms now doing meat boxes that are not necessarily producers. I think if you can find your market, then fine, but it is a really competitive market now. I mean, we were doing mixed meat boxes. I don't know whether it might be easier just to do one species, but we did pork, lamb, beef and chicken all in the same box. At one point, customers could select what they wanted, which was a nightmare, really, for the admin and the time. And then they'd ring up the day before and say they'd changed their mind, they wanted something else in it. So we then switched to a set box. And you could say if you didn't eat pork or whatever. But that was a lot easier, just doing a set box rather than giving people choice. I know that sounds awful, but it was much easier admin-wise. But we're not doing meat boxes now. It did take a lot of butchering, packing, and then the couriers didn't always deliver it. And because something to do with if it's a fresh product, you didn't get any insurance on it. And if the box went missing, you lost it and you had to refund the customer. We did have it happen 2 or 3 times to the same depot, which I thought was very suspicious, but the couriers didn't want to take that further. So, yeah, it's all right if you can do it.
We do sort of click and collect. That works really quite well. You do obviously have a local market anyway, but people engage, they come and speak to you, they learn more about the meat, where it comes from, and it's just a really nice experience for them. Would either of you like to add to that?
We are almost entirely WhatsApp based, basically other platforms available, but yeah, most of our meat will be sold long before it's long before they go to slaughter, basically. But we're dealing in much smaller quantities than everyone else, I think.
Yeah, just to add, we do run a click and collect system for local people around the Mendip Hills. Majority of our sales, as I say, is for catering and for larger orders. We do run a small amount for our weekend visitors, which might be a 20-person stag party or a 200-person private party, and they have a look on the website and then they ring me up and go, actually, can you just do me a box of 50 burgers and 6 kilos of bacon? And so it's kind of there in the background, but I think people really do like the face-to-face conversation, and so, you know, it is there, but I don't think it really is the main sort of income generation from our meat side of it, for sure.
We do them as well. We set it up in COVID. It worked in COVID, but then it didn't work afterwards. I think we pay Google slightly more than we make, and then DPD destroys the rest of our business model.
Good old DPD. Oh, yeah. I've got time for one more question, if anybody's keen.
Hiya, really, really interesting panel discussion, so thank you very much for that. Appreciate you've all probably had a few more years experience than me, but what would your one bit of advice be to a young person wanting to start up, trying to find a more local meat market for their product, and go against what their parents have been doing for years?
You know, not quite verbatim, but that was going to be my last question, so thank you very much. Off you go, guys.
I think it's okay to try lots of things, and I still a firm believer that the best way to make a decision is by process of elimination, because we all find out what we don't like much more quicker than we find out what we do like. So personally, I hate admin, so anything that brings any more admin into my life and people the ability to say, you know, I emailed yesterday, where are you? I try and cut all that crap out of my system, and, you know, I like face-to-face. So I think just, yeah, I think talking to people, exposure to people, finding out what they actually ask you for is a really valuable way of discovering how you can sort of channel new sort of business income streams.
I guess our model's maybe not so replicable for you, but you know, we're kind of quite economically resilient. You know, we because our costs are just so low, essentially, and we have a lot of people participating in the production process. People really understand why it might be a small carcass this year round because they're actively involved. People understand why it might just be mince because it's a 6-year-old goat that's gone on a bit, basically. So it's having that really kind of close community around the food production process has worked really well for us. I appreciate it's maybe not something you might look to do on. You know, some people have a farm and they quite like to run it their own way. You know, so yeah, I think that would be my takeaway from our experience.
I would start small and make sure you've got a market before you kill the animal, really. Start well in advance. I think with the meat, we were already bringing people onto the farms, so they saw the stock and they were more or less waiting for it, which is far better than saying, oh, suddenly I've got a cow, or sheep or whatever, and we need to find somewhere to sell it. So yeah, try advertising locally first.
I should work for the government and wait for a pension, or use somebody else's money maybe. But yeah, you're right. Basically, try to make sure you've got the market lined up before you grow stuff. Don't do what lots of farmers in Devon historically did when I was killing turkeys, which is to grow lots of turkeys and go, oh, I got turkeys a week before Christmas. Can you do anything with them? You want to get that market lined up. And I would say when you do start a business, you'll find that you get to a spot where you are profitable and there's a sweet spot. And then when you expand, you go back into a loss for a bit until you get to the next sweet spot. So sometimes it's judging where your sweet spot is, what works for you in your context and that sort of thing. It is deeply personal. It is deeply context driven as to what your market is. if you've got a spot on place for a farm shop, then it's all about location and you've got an easy market. So if you've got an awful lot of, you need to look at systems to work out if you have a competitive advantage because of where you are or what you've got or what you can talk about or whatever it is, and exploit that. But don't just do it because it feels like a good idea. But you need to work out what your real competitive advantage is in your context. Thank you.
Yeah, one other thing, I think, don't underestimate the amount of time it will take. especially if you're trying to do the packing yourself or delivering or whatever else, it does take a lot of time. So I think you need to price it accordingly. It's really hard to do, to get the pricing right. I think when we started with the organic pork, I got it way out, and I didn't cost in my time or anything, and it's hard to put your price up. It's easier to bring your price down a bit, I think, but cost it correctly.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. You are free to go to the beer tent now. I'd like you to all give a really big round of applause for my brilliant panel. Thank you so much for joining us.